delighted to say we are joined by one of our regulars. His name is Colonel John Mills, United States Army retired. He has been a very, very formidable contributor through his public service, both in uniform and as a civilian in the Office of the Secretary of Defense and in other incarnations, notably now as a senior fellow of our Center for Security Policy to the national security debate and policymaking process. And we're delighted to have him with us always. Colonel Mills, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Frank. Always an honor to be with you.
Last night, John, the great one, as he's widely known, Mark Levin, was on his program on Fox News, Life, Liberty, and Levin, and he provided a very bracing opening monologue in which he talked quite forcefully, I think, about uh, the character of modern American conservatism. And he was specifically somewhat critical of certain strains that are in that movement, America First being a sort of a rubric under which some of this is taking place, nationalism, populism, even a bit of isolationism uh, that he warned against as distinct from red blooded American constitutional republicanism, I think is kind of his preference. I must say, I'm drawn to that preference myself, and I wanted to talk with you about kind of a fork in the road that we seem to be facing. He was not specific in naming anybody who was adhering to a different point of view, but they're much in evidence in public circles at the moment. Talk a little bit about how you see this choice. Do you regard there being something uh, distinctive about the commitment to our Constitution and our republic based on it, on the one hand, and sort of nationalist and populist sentiment?
Yeah, thank you, Frank. I thought Mark's monologue was brilliant, and he is a 10th degree black belt in addressing these constitutional matters. And I think he was essentially providing guardrails and a caution to some of our terms that have come into use, and terms have just changed radically in meaning. When you and I were in younger years, there was the term conservative or liberal.
Mm.
In many ways, those don't have a meaning anymore. Okay, so we're using other terms nowadays, but let's just focus on what Mark was talking about. And he was talking about specifically, he did bring up the term America First. We don't have a formal definition of what America First is. I like the term. I agree with the term, but he was also providing a word and note of caution on kind of the the adjunct or subordinate terms of nationalism and populism, which he was saying, be careful of these further terms, because those can start to lead in non-constitutional ways. And I'm a constitutionalist. I'm a constitutionalist all the way.
Yeah, me too.
I will always follow the law, but I think I think it was a wise and reasoned. He was bringing these points to the forefront, which we need to be about. Now, one specific point, and you mentioned it, is isolationism, and this is a common hit on the Trump administration and America Firsters from the Obama Brandon Biden team, and I totally reject that, because when they say isolationist, they're talking about 1930s era isolationist, where we literally, that wall on the southern borders provides security. That is not to cut us off from the outside world. In the 1930s, there was a huge debate in the country over isolationism,
Yeah.
and they would
Well,
hit
and
Trump in
indeed, that's when this term "America First" was initially, sort of coined and applied, was by people who thought, we'll just leave the rest of the world alone, and they'll leave us alone. And I think you're right that that certainly doesn't apply today. And I think those who are currently the subject of Mark's ire, who are possibly exhibiting what he would describe as a degree of isolationism, or saying, look, uh, we don't have an interest in Ukraine. We don't want to get into a shooting war with Russia. We've got, I think, they all agree with us that we've got a major adversary in the Chinese Communist Party. Nothing should be done to distract us from that particular threat vector. But how do you see this, John, as you has studied these things closely for a long time? Do we, as a constitutional republic, as a freedom loving nation, have an interest in the outcome of what's happening in Ukraine? And to the extent we do, how should we express that interest and serve it?
Well, there's very important points of America First that help explain this and subordinate America First to constitutional America. And one of those is the term I loved from President Trump was forever war.
Mm,
And it really changed my thinking on what was going on. He said, no more forever wars. And I agree with that. I think because there was this forever war, uniparty attitude toward and never ending conflicts. Those are wrong. That's not what we should be sending our men and women in uniform to. We should not be providing blood and treasure to forever wars. Okay, the second part is, and this really is traced to the Constitution and the intent of the founding fathers, is beware, and this is exactly what President Trump was meaning. Be wary of treaties and long-term treaties, and especially secret treaties, because those are enablers of forever war. So those are the two adjuncts. Now with Ukraine, do we have a dog in the fight in Ukraine? Absolutely. But we have to be extremely careful. And on our side, there are some that have become a little confused because they'll say, well, the enemy of our enemy is our friend. Therefore, Putin is our friend because he's exposing Biden corruption. I'm saying, no,
mm,
absolutely not. If he exposes corruption, great. If he exposes Biden corruption, hooray! Putin is not our friend. Because if you believe that, Putin is really a, a marionette of China. He is by far the junior partner. So if somebody on our side says Putin is our friend, what you're really saying is China is our friend,
mm.
which is absolutely wrong.
Yeah,
Absolutely wrong.
and
So
deadly,
we have a dog in the
potentially.
fight in the Ukraine, but we have to be very careful, very careful. This doesn't turn into a forever war.
Right. And John, again, one question that I would just ask you as a man of considerable military expertise: are we at risk of having the endless supply, seemingly, of material, weaponry of various kinds to Ukraine, um, possibly not being decisive in that outcome, necessary, I would argue, but still not decisive, but depleting our own ability to deal with wars that the Chinese Communist Party, for example, may have in mind for us?
Absolutely. This is amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics. And yes, we are. There's different stockage levels. I'm not a J4 or logistics type. I was and am a planner. So I had to become intimately involved and aware. And yes, we watch these stockage. The professionals watch these stockage levels very close. And as the president has signed we're losing track here. One, two, three. Don't even know how many excess defense article
Well,
authorizations he's signed.
they're going out the door, and we're out of time, John. But just the point is, I think we need to be replenishing them urgently, and I hope that we're doing that. John Mills, thank you for your time today, my friend, and all your service to our country. Come back to us again soon, if you would. Next up, we're going to be speaking with Bill Walton about the financial piece of all this. Right after this.